Hello, and thank you for coming to this Inform Your Community, Celebrate and Create event. My name is Mike. My pronouns are he, him, and I am wearing a green shirt that says aloha on it. You can only see a pineapple, but there's actually like a octopus attached to the pineapple. It's a green shirt. I'm a older white male with a multicolored beard and blue glasses. And I just want to let everybody know closed captioning is enabled and can be turned on by participants. If you are only hearing my voice or seeing my voice, I guess, through closed captioning, it's a little raspy. It's allergy season, so I just want to put that out there. At Inform Your Community, we offer events that combine really important, impactful information with having fun. Visit us at informyourcommunity.org. You can find social media links at the bottom of our website, and tell your friends to sign up for our mailing list on the top right of the website at informyourcommunity.org. And of course, you can donate using our donate button at the top right of the page. If you are watching a recording of this video, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It's very important. It helps other people find our videos in our channel. This event is part of our Celebrate and Create program, where children engage in unique craft projects inspired by inclusive monthly celebration themes. Today's topic is something called restorative justice. The idea behind the word restorative is that when we do something wrong, it creates an obligation to repair or fix the harm we have done. So sending someone to prison for a crime punishes them, but it doesn't repair the harm. When we think of the prison system, there's a big word that comes up called recidivism. It is the tendency for people to commit another crime after they come out of prison, which can result, again, in that person going back to jail, which is, not a good thing. So right now that happens about 4 out of 10 times, but it doesn't need to, because for example, in the Planting Justice program, that's where post-incarcerated people work with plants and gardening. Only 1 out of 10 reoffended or went back into prison. So this recidivism is a preventable problem if we understood it better, which we'll try to do that today. Restorative justice is an important topic that we want to shed some light on, and we will hear about that today as well. Throughout the craft, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to unmute yourself and say something. You can talk or write in the chat. And of course, if you want to share your camera, there's some non-shy people out there. We would love to see what it looks like, so you can show it to us. And right now, I'm happy to announce we have Stacy, our expert crafter, who will help us with our craft today. Stacy, can you tell us more about why you selected our craft today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mike, for that great introduction. Love your shirt. Looks like a very interesting shirt with that octopus part of it. Yeah, very interesting. So, okay, I'm a white woman with salt and pepper colored hair. I'm wearing a green shirt and I have a black background. And my pronouns are she and her. And I chose the craft we're doing today, which is going to be this really cool bracelet craft. So you can see it here on the big screen. You can see it a little bit there, maybe on the small screen, if you're able to see that one. And so we have this really cool bracelet craft.
I can see it.
Awesome, thank you. We have this really cool bracelet craft we're gonna make. And what occurred to me is that there's similarities with like this idea of a bracelet with this topic of prison reform, because and kind of differences, important differences too. So we put on the bracelet, and when people go to jail, they wear handcuffs, right? And so when we put on our bracelets, though, we do it, and it's kind of an expression of our freedom, right? If we have something, pretty, we want to accessorize, we want to wear something nice in our clothes, that's a freedom that we have. In contrast, when somebody goes to jail, if they have handcuffs, that's a sign of them not having freedom, or their freedom being taken away. And so I saw there was a kind of similarity, but also really important and kind of differences we should care about and think about. And as I spoke with some experts on this topic, I started to think about what are the values that we, can be associated with this topic. And some of those are things like giving back and repairing harm, fulfilling one's potential. And there's certainly a lot of doing community service, for example, certainly a lot of values that come along with this topic.
Yeah. You know, when I was a kid and I did something wrong, like in school or with my parents, you know, I had to show that I felt bad for what I did. And I did feel bad for, you know, when I did something wrong. And I also had to make up for what I did as well. And that's, you know, that's a way to take responsibility. So when we talk about people, adults who do that, we call this rehabilitation. So, you know, imagine you did something wrong, you took your punishment, but then also you kind of felt bad about it, right? You have that bad feeling. It's like a cloud that follows you over your head. And this could hurt how you feel, right? Even though you did something wrong, but that's done and you did your punishment, but you still don't feel good about yourself. And you know, that also affects how others treat you and may prevent you from, you know, reaching your potential. Maybe you had a test that day, you did something bad in the morning, you had a test, and now you're feeling bad and you're only thinking about that and you don't get a good grade on the test. So when someone's rehabilitated, it involves, you know, training and getting other help, so you can follow the rules easier, so you know what you did wrong, and then also so you can contribute to your community and do something positive. So Stacy, you know, let's start with our craft and get moving with that.
I would love to. I'm sure our crafters want to too. So what we have today is this bracelet we're going to make. And everybody who's crafting with us, whether you have our kit or not, what you need is a pair of scissors. So we have a pair of scissors and you need some tape. Any kind of tape is fine. So no problem there. If you are using your at-home materials, you need some kind of a string or what we call embroidery floss, which is what I'm showing you here. I'll put it in the other camera angle as well. If you can't see both camera angles, you can like swipe your screen, you'll be able to see the other one. So you have this kind of string or what's called embroidery floss. The other thing you're going to need is at least one bead of some kind. For our craft kit, we have a little bell. But what you're going to, you can use at home if you don't have a little bell, is you can use what's called a pony bead, the kind of bead you sometimes see in folks' hair or you'd use for crafting. And so you can use one of those beads. You can use up to 4 of those beads for this craft, actually.
Wow.
And you can use those in any color, does not matter at all. So that's it. Pretty simple craft as far as materials at home go. In terms of our kit, if you got our kit, which looked a bit like this, what you're going to have in here are 3 different color strings once you open it, and you're going to have 4 bells in there. So I'll just show you that for a second. So you see 3 color strings that we have and 4 bells.
Awesome.
Yeah, and you can use
Just
that
so
to
you know,
yeah, go ahead.
you know, I put that in the chat. So if someone's watching and they you can find where the chat is, you'll see what the materials you need in there.
Excellent. Thank you, Mike. That's a big help. And just so folks know, one of those beads or the bell, one bell, is going to be used what you use later to close the bracelet.
Ah, okay. That sounds like fun. I have a question, Stacy, just to get back on the topic we were talking about. Is restorative justice the same as justice reform? Are they the same?
No, they kind of sound similar though, don't they?
They do.
They're not. So in restorative justice, which we kind of talked about before, that includes things like the gardening program, which you mentioned, planting justice, but also includes some other types of things as well, not all of which we can possibly cover now. But one of the things that sometimes happen is that folks will organize a meeting between the offender, that's the person who committed the crime, and the victim of the crime. And other representatives maybe in their community. And these are called victim impact programs. And so this was actually started by with a program called Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And the idea with that program is that the victims would be able to come and speak to the with the offender and explain to them the harm that the offender had caused, right? To kind of get that off their chest, explain like the bigger implications of what happened from that one little act that had obviously a horrible, devastating potential result. And at the same time, the victim would be given the opportunity to then kind of apologize and show their remorse for that happening. So the goal of these types of programs is really like sharing the people's experiences of whom's involved and discussing the harm and kind of allowing the offender to repair that harm. At least, obviously, it can't always be repaired. Oftentimes, it can't be repaired,
Right.
but at least to be able to express their sincere apologies for that. Very similar to what we do when we make a mistake in our own homes, in our schools, right? We apologize and kind of can make amends for it.
And what's justice reform? How does that differ?
Great question. Great question. So justice reform, on the other hand, is kind of very large scale changes in the kind of system of prisons and the way the prison system works and the judicial system works. So very, very large scale changes. So for example, trying to make those changes in recidivism. So taking part in one program, like the Planting Justice program, might be restorative justice, but actually changing the system so that these kinds of restorative justice programs are part of the system is justice reform. So kind of bigger level changes.
Yeah, it's good. Now I get the words look the same, even have a lot of the same letters, but now I get the difference. And I bet even if I didn't, I can go and I could read your infographic and that would probably explain it a lot as well. And
It's
that
true.
with the crafting material. But you know what? Can we go back to making the craft? Because that looks like fun.
It does look like fun. Let's get to that. So here's what you're going to do. So first you want to pick your two colors. Okay. So whatever two colors you in your kit or you have from your home materials. So for example, I just pulled out some extra material I have. You want to pick two colors. I recommend that you pick two colors that are very high contrast colors. This way you'll be able to see the difference in the colors as you're doing it. That'll make it a bit easier. So I'm pulling out my yellow, which I feel like doesn't have a big enough contrast for me right now. And I'm just going to stick with one blue string and one of this kind of beige string. Okay. So that's what I'm going to use. Now you have three strings. And if you're an older kid, you can definitely use three strings. As a matter of fact, bracelets like this can be made with like any number of strings. The more strings you have, the longer it takes to make it, the more complicated it is to make it, the more frustrating it is to make it, and the bigger it is when it comes out. So you have to weigh all those things. And depending if you have smaller hands or bigger hands and what your patience level is, you may want to choose wisely. But for us today, I recommend just sticking with two strings. Here though, for example, I have one started that's 4 strings. I have one here that's completed with smaller beads on it. And that one had, let me see, that one had, I think, eight strings. No, that one had 6 strings. That one had 6 strings. So you can do it any you want. This one though, which is our little test sample here, this one just had 2 strings, and look how pretty that one came out.
That's
So,
pretty cool.
thank you. So the other thing you're going to do is, because I gave you a lot of string, okay, is you're going to fold, once you've picked which colors, you're going to take your two, put those 2 colors together, put the ends of those 2 colors together. Okay, which I'm doing here, I'll do it up here. Take the ends of those 2 colors, and you're going to match them up with the other side end of those 2 colors. Okay, so you'll do that. And then you'll have this side that's attached, and this side's not attached. You're going to take the attached side, okay, and cut it. Because I gave you folks a lot of string, you don't need all of that to make your bracelet. So now you have another choice. You can either make your bracelet with 4 strings. Again, if you're older, not easily frustrated, have a lot of patience, have a little time, right? You can make it with 4 strings, even though it's just
older, but I get frustrated quickly, so I would probably not do that.
Yes. So if you get frustrated quickly, you're going to do is you're going to only take half of those. Okay. So you'll just pull apart the other half. You can save that for later. Maybe you have a friend or a sibling.
You can make another one, right? With the other 2 strings.
Exactly.
It's cool.
So we gave you enough to do actually 2 bracelets if you want to, or 1 bigger bracelet. Next, what you're going to do is you're going to take your end. It doesn't matter which end, they're both ends. Take your end, okay? And you're going to tie a knot. For those of you who are too small, I'm going to show you very slowly how to tie a knot. For those of you who are big, this is going to be really boring for a minute, okay? So you're going to make a loop, okay? Make a loop.
Can you hold it? Yeah, on the camera better? Yeah, that'd be great.
So you're going to, oops, sorry, make a loop. Okay, so then all I did is I I have my 2 fingers spaced apart. I'm just putting my 2 fingers together. It automatically makes a loop.
Yep.
Once I have that loop, I'm going to pull the end that's loose through that loop. And let's loose through the loop, just like this. Okay. And then I'm going to try to make that knot be as close to the end as I can. You can leave an inch, half an inch, and then pull it tight. That's it. Okay. There is your end. I'm just going to show you one more time, a little quicker on this other one. So you're making your knot. And the reason I'm going over this so carefully is because knotting is actually the most important thing in our craft today. You're going to be hearing a lot about this, Mike, a lot about knots. So you're taking it.
I hope not.
You're bad. I'm taking this. I'm going to put my 2 fingers together. I automatically form a loop, pull one a little bit higher, pull that through the loop. And there you go. You have your knot. Pull your knot a little bit towards the end. And there you go.
Cool.
Go ahead. Sorry. Yes.
No, I just said cool. And
Oh,
I see someone just joined, so they didn't really miss much because all you really did was that knot thing. So they could totally catch up and still do the craft in time, I think.
absolutely. Welcome, welcome. Anybody who's coming late, no worries. You will catch up quickly. So what you can do is, all we did so far is we just tied a knot, 2 strings, we tied a knot at the end. If you have a grown-up nearby, they can do that for you super quick, and you can catch up really quickly. So you're just taking 2 of the strings in your craft, in your kit, you're folding it in half, cutting it so it's a little smaller and easier to work with, and then taking one of those sets and tying a knot at the end of it. So that's where we are. That's the quick version. But ultimately, you just need something like that at the end with one knot. And the other thing I just want to mention is that you do want to take your tape. It's good to have tape and scissors for this craft. You want to take your tape and just put it over the end of that, because you want that attached to your table. Make sure it's a table that your parents do not mind putting tape on. Or that at the very least, the tape is easy tape to remove. Otherwise, you can use a plate and put this on a plate. And you want to make sure that you have that really firm. I'm going to move it a little bit over so it's more in view in the other camera. Okay,
Yeah, we can see that.
so
That looks good. That looks good.
does that look good? Is that okay?
Yes, the IT staff approves.
Okay, so now what I want you to do is, and we're going to get us started, because actually, believe it or not, once I show you how to do this the rest of the time, you're just going to be doing this craft. Okay. It'll actually be really easy.
It's repetitive
Getting
and
it started is
simple.
the hardest part. What?
It's repetitive and kind of simple is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you've got your 2 strings, you've got your knot, you've got your tape over it so it's stuck to your table or to a plate. Here's what you're going to do. We showed you how to do a knot before, and this you kind of have to look at the close-up camera, okay? So you're taking your 1 string. It does not matter which string you start with. Take 1 string and you're going to, basically, I'll do the quick version, tie a knot. That's it. Okay? Now, whatever, assuming you're right-handed, if you're not right-handed, then anything I say that has to do with my right hand, assume I mean left hand, okay? But you're going to take, if you're right-handed, so you did that, you made a knot. Since you're only working with 2 strings, all you're going to need to do is now take the other string. So I had my blue string first. I used my blue string to tie a knot. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my white string and tie a knot, okay?
Oh, I see. So you're alternating the strings when you tie the knot. You tie one with the blue one with the white, different color.
Exactly. If you were, so you can see my other one that I started to make here. If you have many, many colors on this, okay, in this case, I just have the 2 colors. Okay, I'll show you over here. I just have 2 colors. You can see that on this one, the more colors you add, do you see that pattern?
Yes.
So that pattern is kind of like a diagonal pattern. If you have more strings, then you end up making a diagonal pattern. You're not going to see that really too much with with only 2 strings. But if you did do this with more than that, you'll be able to see an actual pattern. And
you cycle through the string. You do string 1, string 2, string 3.
I'm going to explain it
over.
Exactly right now. I'm going to explain exactly that to you right now. So in this one, let me just make sure I've got it.
I'm sorry if I'm skipping ahead here.
You're not. You are exactly helping along. Very appreciated, Mike. Okay, so with this one, what you're going to do, if you had more than one string, sorry, if you had more than one string, what you're going to do is, it's actually the exact same thing. So, but I'll explain. So there's always like one string that's kind of the boss at any one time. Okay. So if you have only two strings, then it's easy. One is a boss one time, and then you move to the other one, that's the boss. Then the next one's the boss, then the next one's the boss, right? In the case when you have more than that, more strings, okay, then what you're going to do, I moved this, so now I have to reposition it just the right way. Okay, so when you have more strings, okay, then what you need to do is you take the first one that's on the left, okay, that becomes the boss string, if you will, okay, and that boss string, you're going to take the one that's right next to it. And you're going to do the same thing I just did in that other one, which is make a knot. Loop it around, pull the string through it, and pull it up. You take your boss string over to the next one, which if you did it alternating contrasting colors, which I recommend, is going to be a different color string. So then you do it again. You have both strings. You have your boss string in your right hand, left-handed, it's in your left hand, boss string in your right hand, and hold that, make a loop, pull the boss string through the loop, and pull up. Now you go to your right again, take the next string, which is going to be a different color than the other string. Okay.
So the boss string is making a loop on each one as it goes through.
Exactly.
And then when you do all the strings, I guess the string that was the first one that was the one becomes the boss string. And now you do the knot with each one of those.
Exactly. So now on this one, I'm doing the dark pink string. I'm going to just do one more row to show you. You pull it up, and then you go to the next string. That's the opposite color. And then you pull, oops. And then you pull. And if you're ever not sure which one's the boss string, if you look back, you'll see which one's connected to the previous string, and that's the boss string. So you do
That's a cool tip.
do the next one, pull it up again, do the next one, pull it up again. And now the boss string is all the way on your right. And the one on the left is now the new boss string. So I'm just going to show you in our close-up camera. And you have that cool pattern.
That is cool.
So if you do more than one, more than two colors, there you go. Having said that, doing it one color still looks super cool. You definitely, it becomes like,
higher.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It becomes like a twist pattern.
Yeah,
Like,
it does look cool.
so it also looks super cool. So don't worry about that. And it's going to be, these are not very high contrast colors, but once you see the high contrast colors, then it's really going to look great. So I did the blue one first. I'm now going to, once again, I'm going to make a loop. I'm using the other string as the boss string now. I'm going to make the loop, pull that string through. And now that one goes over to the right. Now the one on the left becomes my boss string. Put that over the white one, underneath, pull up. So you can do that until you're kind of used to that gesture. But probably don't do it more than just a couple of times, because what I want you to do next is put your bell or bead on it. So if you have our kit, you have a bell. Oops. If you have our kit, you have a bell. So you can go ahead, pick which color bell you want to be your closure bell. Okay, but you'll probably use a couple of bells if you want. And all you're doing, let me get it on one of the cameras. There we go. So you're taking your string. It doesn't really matter on the two string one, doesn't really matter which string it is. If you have more than two strings, I would say do it on the leftmost one when you're starting a new row. So you're going to put your string through that bead. It's hard, so you may need a grown-up to help, but the loops in the bell that we sent are kind of big, so you should be okay. Put that string through your bead or your bell, just like that. And then you're going to ignore it, because then you're going to go back to doing what you did before. You can always check which one was your last boss string by what's the last one that is wrapped around it, wrapped around the other string. So right now I have a blue string wrapped around my white string. That means my white string is the boss now.
Cool.
So I'm gonna, once again, just make a knot and pull it up. Now, just so you know, this is literally what you're going to do the whole craft, which is super exciting, a nice, easy craft, but it is hard to get the motion right. So do those first ones really slow, make sure you've got it right. And as we go through today, I'll be checking in with you, but I did want to let you know in terms of your beads, if you're looking in the main camera, you'll notice that the beads are spread out evenly, okay? You can do that as you like. So this one, I have two that are close on this side and two that are close, two that are close on the other side, but then there's like a gap in the middle. It doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to know except you, because once it's on your wrist, it all looks pretty. So you can space the beads out however you want. You actually don't need to have any more beads after this or bells after this. If you really don't like the look of it with the bells, or maybe the sound bothers you, you just need to have that one at the end, because that's what you're going to use for your closure. And I think as in the meantime, Mike, while our crafters are working on that, and I'm going to keep showing you in this, while our crafters are working on that, you want to tell us some things,
I can talk.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and I couldn't get my thoughts. That happens to all of us sometimes. What, can you tell us, why should any of us care about restorative justice anyway? I mean, luckily we're not in prison. So why do we care?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. And actually, most of us like to be treated fairly, right? But there are things about our prison system that don't seem very fair at all. For example, Black people are disproportionately affected by the prison system. Only 1 out of every 10 people in the US is Black, but 4 out of 10 people in prison are Black. So the ratios there seem misaligned. We know in some cases people go to jail even when they aren't guilty. Probably in New York City, the most famous are the Central Park Five,
Sure.
who were wrongly imprisoned. They all went to jail for at least 5 years, and the longest was in jail for 13 years for a crime they didn't commit.
Wow, that's
Another man you may have heard about is he was on America's Got Talent. His name is Archie Williams, and he was wrongly imprisoned for 36 years. Could you imagine being punished for something that you didn't do?
not even for a minute, let alone for 36 years.
Yeah.
No. So another thing that doesn't seem fair in the kind of prison system is the cost of incarcerating people in prison. So based on a 2022 study, the average cost, what they call the COIF, but the cost for how much it costs to have a prisoner in prison and kind of support them in like a state-run prison, or
You have to pay
federal
for
prison.
food, and you have to pay for guards and
Exactly,
and everything. Mhm.
is $39,158. So 39,000 a year, which comes out to about $120 a day. Okay, that's how much it costs to put somebody in prison. And the average cost of re-entry, a residential re-entry facility, so that's a little bit different than a prison, would be 35,000 a year. That's less, right? Because the other one was 39,000. This is 35,000. That's about $100 a day. So they actually have these kind of residential re-entry centers, and the cost of putting somebody in that kind of a facility is actually less than the cost of putting a person in prison. So it's even got, it doesn't seem kind of quite fair if the prison system is not helping stop this recidivism we were talking about, and people end up in jail. And then the centers that could help don't, of course, less money and aren't being used as much. So it doesn't, there's something that's not quite right about those numbers.
Yeah.
And these statistics, are important really for understanding that there's something about the way the current system is working. We may not know what it is exactly, but there's something about the current way the current system is working that isn't working. So empathy is important to kind of understand that in the current situation.
And
And
it's good to know these statistics because we're paying for that with our tax money, and just to understand how the problem works, and how important it is to make it better. Just all the things we said, I think, is
exactly.
factored into that.
Exactly. And we're not the ones making the decisions all the time, but it's at least a good empathetically to kind of just understand, some of that. So, okay, I think our crafters are probably ready for their next step. Hopefully you've gone a little far in your process. If anybody has any questions, is there anyone in the chat? I don't think so. But
There's
if anybody,
no questions in the chat
perfect. If anybody
that
has
I can see.
anybody, let us know if you have questions. But otherwise, you're basically just doing this. You're still doing that. You're tying that knot and then switching your string and tying the knot. Every once in a while, just so you know, it may seem like really twisted, like your arm's starting to do weird things. You can let go and reposition it, because you'll always know which one is the last string you did, because you'll see which is the one that is wrapped, right? So in this one, my last string before I start to, sorry, my camera's on reverse here. My last string before I started, before I'm ending over here, is a dark pink. That means the next string I need to be the boss string is going to be the light pink. So, okay, so we have our craft. Now, I think you may want to consider, depending on where you are with your craft, is putting your next bead on. You want to space those out. So if you are going to have your next bead or your next bell, you can space that out really wherever you want to. I tend to advise it to be kind of equidistant, just means equal space between them. So and if you have different color beads, you can pick different colors to do it with. In my case, I have a whole bunch of different ones. I've got pink ones, I've got purple ones. That's a nice part about being the one who helps with the craft kits. I get a little bit more variety, but you folks at home have a good variety too. And so in this case, I'm going to put on purple. Actually, that's not true. I'm going to put on pink. Okay, so I'm going to put on a pink bead. Again, if you're only doing 2 strands, it doesn't really matter which strand you put it on. If you have more than 2 strands, you're going to go ahead and put it on the one that's on the left side. I'm just going to show you again on the close-up camera. So if this one, for example, I wanted to add my bell, I would take my leftmost piece of string. So this is now in the close-up not the close-up camera, the main camera, the one with my face. I'm going to put the string in the hole in the bead. And again, these kind of have a pretty decent sized hole. You're going to put the string right through there and pull it up. And then be careful it doesn't fall off again. You can make sure, in my case, I have to tape mine again. But in your cases, you might not have had to take the tape off to do that. And I'm going to tape mine again. Make sure it's nice and firm. You can see that in the other camera.
Yeah,
Now
when they're doing it at home, they don't have to hold it up to the camera.
Exactly. The luxury of not being the hoster.
Master crafter.
The master crafter. So but you don't want to like leave it there just dangling on that for too long. So I would say that's not the best time to take a bathroom break or anything. You want to seal this in so it doesn't fall off accidentally. Maybe your cat comes and eats it. Like, you don't want to do that. So I would seal that on by just, again, doing the same thing we've been doing, taking your leftmost string, which is in theory the one that the bead is on, and then using that as your boss string, going across all of them and so forth, as you saw there. And then that bead will stay on and you won't have a problem. Okay, so now I'm going to go back and we're going to just continue with the knotting, okay? You're going to keep going until you have about the same distance for your next bead. So I put the one on here. I didn't put a bead on here. I'm just going to keep going for a while with it. And yeah, so keep going on knotting until you're ready to do your next bead.
Cool. You said nodding, and I was thinking like nodding and like nodding my head, but like that's the thing about language. I mean, and bringing that back to, the topic we're talking about, what kind of language should we use to talk about folks that have been in prison?
That is a really good question, actually. And there's a movement in general about making sure our language choices, when we're talking about different groups, that our language focuses on the people themselves and not their group or not their action or their past and things like that. So very kind of people-centered. And so saying a person is formerly incarcerated or a formerly incarcerated person, those are less problematic than the terms that are probably the more common terms we use to talk about people who were in prison. You probably heard a lot terms like convict, felon, ex-con, criminal, the accused, and so forth, that have kind of really negative negative kind of assumptions about them and stereotypes associated with them. They're very negative terms to call somebody, and they kind of mark the person as like they always are about that thing that they did that sent them to jail. Whereas saying somebody's formerly incarcerated, it seems more like it's in their past and now they're moving on, right? It also, as we're thinking about these kind of stereotypes and assumptions about things, it also helps to understand more about the prison system in general. So some prisons, so if you don't mind me talking about it for a little bit, Mike.
I can talk about it as well. I know, so I know that
Sure.
like state and federal prisons are run by the government, and you
Great.
correct
Yeah.
me if I say anything wrong here, but
Okay.
I
Yeah. Go
know
on.
that there's also private for profit business prisons, and that's about 1 out of every 10 prisons in the US.
That's
Um,
impressive. That's impressive. Yes, that is all. That is all the case. Yes.
Many
Absolutely.
prisoners have work responsibilities while they're in jail, and they work 8-hour days, just like our family members do when they go to work in the morning and come home much later in the day. But the interesting thing is that the wages for incarcerated people are very low,
Yeah.
even though they're
Good
working
point.
all day, just like everyone else.
That is a very good point. Yeah, wow, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Yes, that's all true. Those are the I you probably added more in there than even I would have thought to add. So I'm glad you mentioned those things. And there's obviously just a lot to know about the prison system that, you knew it, which I'm impressed, and you knew more, maybe more, even more than I was going to say, but there's probably a lot of people out there who don't know those things about prison. And there's a lot of good things too. I mean, it's kind of depressing thinking about somebody who's working a full day and they get paid, I think it's under $1. And but there are good things that's going on with prison reform and kind of helping to improve the prison system. Mark Zuckerberg, who you may know from Facebook fame, um, him and his wife, Priscilla Chan, have promised to commit, I think it's 350 million to justice reform initiatives. And they actually started something called the Just Trust that's dedicated to justice reform. So that's a good thing. And then there's also some other famous folks actually that do some good work, like Amal Clooney, who you might know as George Clooney's wife. She's got a whole life of her own outside of George Clooney, and she is actually an attorney who specializes in human rights, criminal-oriented cases internationally. Because these problems are not just problems that we face here, but there's, obviously problems around the world. Okay. So now we know more about that. I want us
I
to.
think there's some little people that want to know if we're done with the craft. Is there more stuff to do?
Yes, so here we go. We're going to keep going. If you've gotten this, if you're doing this, let's see, we're almost done. Really mine here, if I don't hurry up quick, this is going to be the shortest bracelet. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you're
For like a cat, maybe.
maybe a cat. I would not see, we have to be cautious. Do not give a bracelet to your cat. Your cat will eat the bracelet. So
That's true.
do not make a bracelet for your cat. But as much of a cute idea as that sounds, and they might do that in cartoons, but we do not want to do that in real life. It will not go well for the cat. But you can finish your bracelet. You see how quickly, once you get the hang of this, even if you're doing, and you've seen these probably for sale somewhere, or other people wearing them, bracelets that have, you know, a lot of rows, depending on how you do your knots and things like that, like you can get these done pretty quickly, actually. So I did want to mention before I end us, before I show you how to finish off this, and especially because I think probably some folks are still working on it, I did want to mention that on my other one that you saw, where I had you remember the pink one, Mike?
Yes.
So on that one, you notice that we have the diagonal. I mentioned the diagonal pattern,
Because
right?
that has multiple strings.
And that was based on multiple strings.
You're pointing at not at the camera.
Sorry, here we go. There you go. You have your diagonal pattern. This is by doing the exact same thing we're doing right now, but just doing with multiple strings. So your boss string goes across all the strings, and then you move on to the next boss string, and then go across all the strings, as we mentioned before. But what I want to point out is, you see on this, it's alternating one row, one row, one row, one row of colors. But if you wanted to do what's called color blocking, where you had much thicker blocks of colors, any guess how you would do that, Mike?
I would think you would just use the same color as the boss string over and over again.
Right, exactly. So you can do that, and then you would get nice blocks of color. You would actually want to, yeah, so you can do that, and you'll get nice chunks of color. You can actually, probably the slightly better way to do it is to do it by, at the very beginning, when you pick your colors, do 3 strands of pink, strands of light pink, for example, and that way you have the boss string 3 times in a row would be the same color, and so it would be thicker. But there's definitely more than one way to get to a goal. So I appreciate the suggestion of how to do it there. It was pretty impressive. Okay, good. So thank you. And now I'm going to show everybody how to end their craft. I think we're probably ready for that. If we're going too fast, let me know that. Okay. But I think we might be ready. And also, so here's a couple of things. If your bracelet right now is too small and you're not ready to end it yet, that's okay. You can pause the video if you're watching it on YouTube. But if you're doing this live with us and you're not ready to end your craft yet, it's totally fine. Pause for a second, watch how we do it, and then you can always watch it later, because we will send you the event video. Okay, so here's how you do it. It's actually kind of easy. You're going to take your end, and I'm going to take mine off my tape just to show you, but you don't have to actually do this when you're doing yours. Okay, so you have your end. Now I'm in the main camera. Okay, so this is the top part. We have our bead over there, or bell. This is the end part, which is now kind of just dangling off wherever you left it. Okay, and if you had to guess what we do next, do you want to guess this one?
I'm gonna guess you're gonna make a loop and tie the knot with the 2 strings.
Exactly right. We're all about
I'm not even a master crafter.
You could have done this.
By watching your crafting stuff so much, I'm just becoming a better and better crafter. That's it. It's win-win with Inform Your Community, isn't it?
So you're going to tie a loop. We're all about knots today. Usually knots are about like, no, don't do that, don't do this, but today knots are a good thing. So we have the knot. We're going to take the very tip of it, okay? And you're going to put your finger on where you ended the last place you had your boss string tie a knot, okay? And you're going to put those 2 fingers together. That's going to automatically, it's going to make a loop, okay? You're going to then hold that where they connect with one hand. You're going to take the loose pieces, and again, I'm doing this really slow in case we have a small person here who hasn't done this before. A parent or a guardian can certainly help. You're going to take those loose pieces and you're going to put them through the hole, okay? But now you're not, normally we would pull it tight. We don't want to do that, because you need that loop, because that loop is what's going to go over the other end, okay? So you're going to just do the exact same thing again. Now, this is the harder part. By the way, I'll pause right here for just 1 second. If your bracelet's too long, okay, and you're like, oh no, I didn't measure it, it's too long, you can fix that by just doing what I'm about to do, pulling it down a bit over where it's too long. And then you actually, your braided part, I'm going to call it, we didn't really braid it, that's another thing, but let's say your braided part, the knotted part is now part of that end loop, which actually kind of looks, whoops, kind of looks pretty, right? If you see it here, whoops, if you see it there,
Yeah, I can see it.
that's when the loop is made of the knotted part. You can do that if it's too long, or if the you have the knotted part just right, and you just want to make your loop, then your loop's going to look, oops, where I am, here, your loop's just going to look like that, like the string. So either way, it looks totally fine. Mine's going to be half and half, okay? So now, so you've got this loop. This is where we were a second ago. We're going to do the exact same thing. You can also do this, by the way, if you didn't give yourself enough space to do a second knot, you can do this so that you have a little bit more string at the end. So now we're going to do this. We're going to take this string and we are going to.
Thank you.
So, oh, thank you. So we're going to take the string. We're going to put it through the, this is where it gets tricky. Probably the hardest part of the whole craft. Take the string, the ends, put it through your hole. Take the ends, put it through that loop you just made, or what I just called the hole. Okay, now you're doing that, you're making a second loop. Basically, for the grown-ups out there, you're doing a double knot, right? But you're making a second loop. So now we have a second loop. So we have our first loop, oops, sorry, first loop's here, and then we have a second loop. You're going to pull those ends, and now we have the ends again. Pull those ends through that second loop. So you're really just making a knot twice. We call that a double knot. And now you're going to pull that one tight. Okay, so this first loop stays exactly in the same place as it was. Your second knot that you just made makes it tight. And now you have a double knot at the end. You have a double knot at the end. You'll still have some hanging off, which you are welcome to cut. Okay, don't cut it too close, because then it could untie the knot. Leave a little bit. Make sure it's still tight. Pull it. And then you're fine. And then, now, unfortunately, my bracelet's really small. My wrist is not that small. And I'm not putting it on my cat, despite Mike's
That's a bad idea.
because that is a bad idea. Because cats will not like to have a bracelet on them, but also because it could be dangerous to the cats if they have a string. So now you're going to put your loop over, oops, over your bead. And now it won't come off.
Ah.
Okay, so what you just did is you have your one bead on one side. On the other side, you have a loop. That loop is how you hold both together. Okay, now I mentioned you can cut the ends on this loop side, which we did. You can also cut the ends on the other side a little bit as well. If that's what I'm going to do with your scissor, just cut that a little bit. And then you have your bracelet. This one's a very miniature one. This is a doll bracelet.
There you go. Well, you did have to cut it short, and you did tell everybody that they just how to do more and more and more, but you cut it short just for instructional purposes. So we appreciate your sacrifice.
This one, on the other hand, here, I do have the finished project for the other one. Here too, I can cut that end string, like I just mentioned. Oops, here we go. Cut that end string. So I'll cut that end string. And on the other side of it, I had previously made my loop. I have some end string, whoops, I have some end string there as well. I'm going to cut that off, so it's not sticking out as much. And on that one, I had a loop as well. It's in the close-up, but also I'll put it in the main camera now. So I had a loop on that one. This one is a full-size bracelet. And so now I can put that one on, put my loop over the other side. It could take somebody's help to help you with that. And now, ta-da, you have a very nice little bracelet.
Awesome.
So I hope you enjoy that. And if you may have made it for yourself, you can make it for your friend. You can give it to your friend, or maybe you can use that extra one I showed you earlier, because you did cut it in half because the string was really long, or any extra string you have, if it's enough to make a second one. You can go ahead and make one for a friend. The nice thing about this, by the way, before I hand it over to Mike, is that, I mean, first of all, it's just a cool craft. You made your own bracelet. How great is that? But also, you now have the technique you can do to make bigger ones, smaller ones, ones with contrasting colors. You can use more than 2 colors. You can use as many colors as you want. We just had Pride Month. You can do it in rainbow colors. But also think about how much string you actually needed. This is all the string you needed to make this bracelet, right? So it's a great kind of recycling, upcycling type of a project. If you have some string around that you think's pretty and you don't want to get rid of it, you can actually just use this much and make a beautiful bracelet out of it. So thank you so much for joining us for this. And Mike, why don't you take us away?
Sure thing. So thank you for joining us for this restorative justice craftivism discussion while we made our own bracelets. And thanks to all of our wonderful crafters today who had a lot of patience. Because the topic of restorative justice is an ongoing conversation, we will send our event video and infographic in a follow-up email by the end of next week, which we encourage you to share with others. Getting informed by coming to this event is a great way to start learning about the topic. Please take a moment right now to take our quick poll. Our email will also include another brief survey of what you thought of the event itself. So take the time to respond, please. Your feedback is very important to us. Check out our upcoming events at informyourcommunity.org. You'll find other great Inform Your Community events, not only our Celebrate and Create program, but events from our other programs as well. By the end of the month, we expect to have our full lineup of the next 12 months of events posted. Tickets, materials, and shipping are free, so please sign up. Remember, only those signed up a week before the event will receive the kits mailed to their homes. Our next free event is an adult crafting event this coming Thursday on June 13th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, where we will discuss productive discourse, a forgotten art in today's conversations. Again, if you're watching this video on YouTube, please be sure to like our video and subscribe to our channel. It helps other people find us. And also, please consider donating to cover the costs of materials and shipping if you can afford it, as it helps keeps our events free for those who can't.